chain drug review and mass market retailers video forum. Brought to you by the Emerson Group.
Hello everyone, I'm Jeffrey Wolt, Editor-in-Chief of Retail Media IQ. Welcome to our video forum. Today we're thrilled to have as our guest Dr. David Fairchild, Chief Medical Officer for Retail at CVS Health. David, welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Jeff.
About a decade ago, CVS made the very admirable decision to exit the tobacco category. Since that time, you've done a lot of work to try and keep the spotlight on the issue. Most recently, you conducted a nationwide survey that found tobacco use among young people remains high, and that tobacco use can be in the form of smoking, vaping, or other nicotine products. How extensive is the problem?
It's important to remember that, although cigarette smoking among adults has declined over the past few decades, and I think a lot of us have sort of focused on the great successes there, tobacco still remains a key national public health issue. And according to the FDA, nearly 1 out of 5 adults in the United States still reports using tobacco products. Even more concerning, the CDC says that 1 out of every 10 high school students uses tobacco as well. So cigarettes are still the most common form of tobacco use in the United States, and so it's still a public health issue. In our survey, 87% of U.S. Gen Z and young adults, people ages 18 to 28, said there's currently a teen nicotine use epidemic in the United States. So a strong word. And additionally, the survey found that 77% of these young people, Gen Z and young adults age 18 to 28, who are nicotine users are currently using e-cigarettes and vapes. And nearly half of them, 49%, are still using cigarettes.
As a physician, can you tell me how big a threat this nicotine use poses to young people's physical and psychological development?
Both tobacco and nicotine are public health concerns for sure. There's absolutely no safe form of tobacco use. And again, a lot of people are still smoking cigarettes and using chewing tobacco, etc. Nicotine is part of tobacco for sure, but nicotine is actually part of most e-cigarettes, and nicotine is highly addictive. And there's also concerning research that shows that nicotine can have adverse effects on the developing brains of young people. So it's also just not a healthy thing for young people to be using, and most medical societies are very against teen vaping and teen use of e-cigarettes. And it's important, for individuals who are using these products, either nicotine products or tobacco products, to understand the risks and to develop a plan to stop. Pharmacies are great places to access products and services and specialized programs. At CVS Health and our CVS pharmacies, we've got products to help people stop smoking. And we also have in our mini clinics, which are the clinics in some of our CVS pharmacy stores, we've got programs to help people quit vaping or smoking and get ongoing support. And Jeff, in our survey, 85% of Gen Z and young adults believe that teens who use nicotine are more likely to experience anxiety or depression, and 84% of parents of teens also thought this was the same. So it can have a negative impact on teens' health, but also on their mental health.
Did your research uncover the reason why the adult population perhaps is moving away from nicotine use and smoking, and the younger generation is still not where it should be in that regard?
Well, we didn't exactly ask that question, but in my opinion, those of us who've been around for a while we've been part of we've gotten the information on how bad smoking cigarettes is, and that's been a big campaign since I can remember. And I think young people are just have not have been exposed to that, and so there's a lot of confusion around the dangers of nicotine use. And I think there's a sense that nicotine and e-cigarettes and those kinds of non-tobacco smoking products are somehow not dangerous. So I think it's important from a public health point of view to raise awareness around the dangers of nicotine. especially as we mentioned, how dangerous it can be for young people. In our survey, nearly 1/3 of Gen Z and young adults, the 18 to 28, people were unaware that tobacco is the leading cause of preventable disease and death in the United States. So I think I think that sort of highlights a lack of awareness. In our survey, 50% of Gen Z and young adults don't know what a smoking cessation program is. So clearly work to be done to help people understand the dangers and also where to go for help with quitting.
I was going to say, how is that possible that, with healthcare organizations, I assume schools and, are all trying to get the message across, you don't want to do this. How is it possible the situation is so bad at the moment?
Yeah, it's a very interesting program. I mean, it still feels to me that vaping and e-cigarettes are sort of a new problem, and I feel like a lot of our emphasis from a public health point of view has really been on tobacco, where there's just an accumulation of good data that says that smoking is bad for you. And there's no long-term studies on nicotine and e-cigarettes, and so it's a little bit harder to sort of point to hard facts. So I think this must have something to do with it. And this is sort of where I believe the role of pharmacies can be very important. Pharmacists are among our most trusted caregivers. Pharmacies are, most people in America live close to a pharmacy. So accessing information and products and services to help them quit through a pharmacy, it can be a great thing. And I know, as I mentioned at CVS, we've got access to products like nicotine replacement products, lozenges, gum, and things like that in our pharmacies, and then access to, where we've got minute clinics, access to providers who can develop a smoking cessation or a vaping cessation program that meets a person's needs, provides medication and counseling, which can be very helpful. In fact, Jeff, one of the interesting statistics I like is that access to medication and counseling can more than double a person's chance of quitting smoking. So I think that's where it's important for A, awareness, and B, access to support to help people quit.
Obviously, there is this help available at CVS and other pharmacies. I guess the trick, though, is to get young people in the door. Am I right?
Right, and I think that's where, as you say, education in schools and public health awareness messages coming from all aspects, and also the things that we can do in our communities. I mean, it does bring up the decision that I know you're well aware of because you covered it. 10 years ago when CVS Health stopped selling tobacco, that had a big impact. And I know for myself as an employee, I still feel very proud of this decision we made over a decade ago, and lots of people remember that. And I think those kinds of messages are important. And in fact, one of the data points from our survey showed that a large portion of people felt that the fewer retail places where people can go to buy tobacco products is one of the best ways to help encourage teens not to start using tobacco products.
But as you look at where CVS is today, are there other things that you hope to do that you could do to even have a bigger impact than you've already had?
Well, you're right. We feel very proud about the decision we made, in 2014, so a little over a decade ago, to stop selling cigarettes and tobacco products. And that, in fact, had a big public health impact. There was research that showed in the year following, there were 100 million fewer packs of cigarettes sold in the United States. And so that's something that really resonates. And we are continuing our effort and our support of all of our communities to help people in their quitting journey. And as I mentioned, 70% of Gen Z and young adults in our survey felt that having fewer retailers selling nicotine products would make a difference in reducing teen use. So I think that's a really an important public health message. We continue to have products in our stores to help people with nicotine replacement therapy. We've never sold vaping products or e-cigarette products or tobacco products since 2014, and we won't start doing that. We've continued putting money into community education programs to help raise awareness and educate young people. As you say, it's sort of amazing that people, sort of what appears to be a lack of awareness about the health dangers. So I think the best thing we can do is encourage anyone who is still smoking to try to make that first decision to quit and to, get support. Again, finding support and access to medication can more than double a person's chances of being successful. But we all know that quitting a nicotine addiction is very challenging, and the average number of quit attempts a person has to try is about 7. So people often have to try over and over again.
It's great that you guys are keeping the spotlight on this issue with the survey we've been talking about, and obviously wish you well in this effort. So thank you for your time today, David.
Yeah, and thank you for having me, and a big shout out to all of the pharmacists everywhere for all the work that they do to help people in their quitting journey.